Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Rise and Write with Grace and James. I'm Grace.
I'm James.
And this is a place for creators, collaborators, and fun company for the journey. Today, we have Lori Young out of Colorado, who is a writer, a speaker, and certified enneagram coach and trainer. And she also, in her spare time, does live video production, piecing it all together. Her banner topic is authenticity over approval, and we are here to talk about all things. Lori, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for jumping in and being here. I know you've had a busy day. What are you I know you're working on so much because you and I work together a little bit in the social media realm for another author. What are you working on for yourself these days?
So I am really working on building, a business. Being a speaker, speaking to audiences is like my first love and the whole reason that I jumped into the very deep end of the pool. It's an ocean, really, right? To really get in front of audiences and speak. I love camera stuff. I love microphones. I love anything where I'm in front of a group of people. So, but there's, as you know, Grace, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with that.
It is amazing what goes on behind the scenes of a simple Instagram or Facebook post. We are finding this out.
Yeah.
It's hecka overwhelming, isn't it?
It is crazy. I mean, the documentary Fake Famous, did you see that?
No.
Okay. So I think is it on I don't want to Godfather 4 myself, which I did in a previous episode.
You what?
Godfather, there's no Godfather 4.
That should be against the law. But should have been no Godfather 3.
I want to say it's on Netflix, but I get my streaming services confused. I will link it in our notes. It's called Fake Famous. It's a little documentary where they take 3 Instagrammers with less than 1,000 followers and try to get them to 1 million in so many months. So it's a social experiment, plus they document it, and it's just right before the pandemic hits. So it actually has a really interesting turn at the end about the idea of connectivity and adding value and what are you really creating. So it's deep.
And the point is that there's just like we were saying, there's so much that goes into it, and just just some guy out here on a I don't know, fancy car or whatever. It's just everything is just tremendous amount of work and a lot. It's not just you take pictures. There's a tremendous amount to build a platform that goes into it.
Yeah. Okay. I am watching it.
It's so good, Lauren.
Yeah.
So I have a question that I didn't ask you previously. What is your work in previously, your professional background, and how did you make the switch into all this? This is all fairly new, live video production on, social media, live video production, enneagram coaching, that's all new. What were you doing prior?
I have a degree in social work. I have a bachelor's degree in social work. So I did a lot of work in domestic violence, with hospice, working at a nursing home. And then I made a switch to the mortgage business because I wanted to be cool. I don't know. I was in my 30s.
What year is this?
That was a long time ago.
I'm
literally 20 years ago. So yeah. So then I went into the mortgage business and stayed there for a long time, and then started my own nonprofit. And then when I became a single woman, when I got divorced, I went into ministry and I worked for MOPS International, and then I worked for another nonprofit. So I was their spokesperson, I was their fundraiser, and we had a goal. Our nonprofit wanted to open a coffee shop and train young people, and it was a big lofty goal, and it was a ton of work. It was super rewarding, but there came a day when I knew that it was time for me to go. Just my season doing that was over, and I had accumulated all these years of experience. I attended a couple of Kathy Lipp's speakers conferences, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I just quit my job one day and just decided to be a full-time speaker. Nobody in their right mind should do that. Don't do it unless you have ample income or lots and lots of support or whatever the case may be. But the dumbest decision I ever made. But here I am, and it's all okay. I'm okay. Everybody is okay.
It's come
Was
around.
the transition like, was it just one day you just gave your 2 weeks? Was it more, did it take months, a year? How was that transition from going from working to doing full-time speaking, and how long did the process take? Or was it just like, this is it, see, I hate to be you kind of thing?
It kind of was, this is it. I stayed in the other job and transitioned out of it for maybe a month or so.
Yeah.
And then I started from scratch. And I just started learning everything there was to learn about building a speaking platform. And so I was well on my way. Actually, I had my first kind of paid big speaking gig about a year after I started my business. I'd had a lot of little stuff, and I was experimenting and trying to get planes in the air. But I had my first real speaking gig on March 12th.
Oh no.
2020.
That's funny, because that was a people may not know this, but that was a weird time.
It was a
Yeah, if you Google that, you'll find out that that's probably not the best time.
Oh my God.
So
So this is okay. So this is one of the things I mentioned in our little
little hiccups that come up.
The pre-interview is okay. It's funny now, or amusing maybe even now. But at that time, what did that feel like?
It was the worst to feel like I had absolutely nothing to offer the world, because at that time I thought, I'm a speaker. There is no audience to speak to right now. And I just was too bummed out to try to reinvent what that would look like. But I tried, I muddled through. But truly, it was the best thing that happened, because I had wanted to be certified to do enneagram work for a long time, and they were all in person. They were all very, very expensive. You had to fly out for like a week. And when COVID happened, they all moved their programs to online. And so I was able to invest in all of getting all the training that I needed. And now every certification program that I ever want is all online. It's made it accessible.
Wow, that is an amazing pivot. I want to drill in here one quick. How did you calm yourself to get the focus to make the pivot? Did it take days or weeks to kind of, are you one of these ones that just switches off and looks for the opportunity, or was there like a, do you know what I'm saying? I think you know what I mean. Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying. It took a little while. So, all of that happened in March. I think that most places the place that I received my certification didn't really open up their program online until June or July. And so there was a period of time, I'm going to say it was a couple of months, where I probably experienced some clinical depression and really didn't know what to do. Writing seemed useless. That wasn't making any money. Social media, that there was no income in that. It was a couple of months, probably.
Now, to be clear, your first The first gig, it was totally canceled. It was, I mean, is that what happened? I
It's
mean,
the
was
day
it just like,
before.
No, yeah, I was on stage doing my actual speaking event,
Mhm.
and I noticed that people's phones were blowing up.
wow,
They were like getting
wow,
all these texts, and so that day we were able to finish out the conference. It was a women's business conference,
okay,
and we had to, it was on a like a government property, and they shut the government property down like 2 hours before the event, so all the speakers got to speak, but then that was the end of it.
Oh my
They
gosh.
kicked us out. Our kids, you know, obviously like weren't going to school anymore. Oh yeah.
Wow. That is the start of an amazing book or story right there. I mean,
Ooh,
yeah, that is
yeah,
like,
that is,
that is an
you know,
amazing opening chapter, let me tell you, Lori.
yeah, you get your shot at the plate in the big leagues, and just as you're about to take a swing, it's like that's it.
that's it.
Thanks for coming by. You know, yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
my
So
goodness.
what did you, when you went through the depression those few months, like, what'd you do to help cope? I mean, meditation, speak to someone, walks. I mean, what did you kind of,
It's right where I
the
was headed.
process? Well, I was there first, so
Yeah,
I get,
that's
He's,
such a good question. Yeah,
by the way, so he likes to get into the questions first. Yeah.
that's how it works, right? That's how relationships work.
I
Yeah.
I defer. Yes.
Yeah.
smart.
So I already have like a pretty strong foundation of faith. Uh, and I read the Bible every day. And I pray every day. So I just continued to do what I knew what to do, just in terms of leaning into something that felt certain and sure for me, which was my faith. And you know, I just got some perspective and some clarity from that experience. I also have, sorry, there's a guy right outside my window. I don't know if you can hear him.
It's okay. Go ahead. It's
I also have some incredible friends locally right here, but also, you know, these people that we do our internship with, um, we were all in the same boat.
Right.
You know, we were all trying to figure out like, what's our next? What do we do? Where do we go from here? And we all kind of had each other to lean on during that period of time. So I made sure that I didn't isolate myself. That was probably the biggest thing.
Is that a tendency for you to isolate or no?
It very well could be, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that time it was, you know, we all struggled during that time. We certainly did in our, whatever we were doing. I mean, the one sort of silver lining I found was that we were all in it together. There was very few people, almost nobody who was not, I would say nobody who was not affected in some way by the pandemic. I mean, I don't see how you could not have been. So that helped us a little bit. You know, it wasn't like, what do you know, everything's business as usual. I mean, I don't think that there's anybody who, so that was a little helpful for me.
I agree. That was also comforting for me. Like, this isn't just something happening to me.
Yeah.
We all are figuring out how to cope, and it was already isolating, right? Like I'm single, so I didn't have anyone in my house. I don't think that was better or worse. It was just a different experience. Maybe if someone other than my teenagers had lived with me, we might have torn each other's faces off. But so, you know, there was other people in it with me, but not in my space, right? So I could get away when I needed to, I could reach out when I needed to, but we were all in it together.
Two follow-up questions there. One, on the COVID thing, I found personally that the fact that it was unprecedented. I mean, we had a little experience to fall back on after 9/11. They shut New York down, and it wasn't the same. The fact that there was no how-to, like there was no how to pandemic or 12 steps to survive like there was none of that. I found for the first time after being, how many years now, a barrage of information. What do they call it? Information overload. Everybody was kind of just being like, I don't know, like, we don't know how to do it. You don't like, there was no right way, which felt really freeing in a way because you felt like you could, this is a very five thing for me to say, talk about the Enneagram, but there was no wrong way to pandemic. Like,
Oh, right.
except not to hurt yourself or hurt someone else. But
Mhm.
there was no wrong way to do
Right.
it. So everybody could own their own experience without double checking Google to see if they were doing it right. And
Mm.
and I found that, like, I don't want to say, I don't know what the right word was, but for me, it just felt freeing. Like, okay, like, this is a real experience. It's happening now, and I'm writing my own playbook. And I don't know, that felt good for me. My second question on the isolation, and we can get into the Enneagram a little bit. How did you know from studying it that you might isolate yourself, right? How did that help? How did that knowledge of yourself help you in that in between time, navigating the in between time between March and June?
Um, I kind of gave myself permission to do what I needed to do.
Mm,
Um, I I gave myself permission to curl up on the couch if that's what I needed to do, or call a friend, or I just stopped beating myself up so darn much.
yeah.
And that was really key for me, because that's the kind of thing that keeps me like under the covers. Is that like shame that I kind of tend to like, what would other people think of me if I were like, well, everyone's having to cope in the same way.
Yeah.
So it released a lot of pressure for me to have to do it, like you said, to have to do it right or perfect, or what is everyone else doing.
Mm,
um Social media really was not my friend necessarily during that period of time, because everyone seemed, put on the up and chipper um, kind of front. And so that was a little bit challenging.
yeah, and
I
there
understand.
was so much division also on social media. It became like a land, like a
Yeah.
field of landmines. Like, you didn't know any day when you logged on what
Hmm.
Right.
what conversation you were stepping into.
But I understand.
So
Sorry.
there was like sourdough making and people decluttering, and then there was the politics, and then there was the pandemic, and it was just like, I
And
sta-
I
I stayed in my groups. Yeah.
I went for a walk one day, and I knew I'd had enough information that you could be outside 20 feet away from all the other people without a mask. And I came across a neighbor who, was very friendly. How are you doing? Please don't get the COVID. It's terrible, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, I don't plan on it. Went on my way, on my walk by myself. There is no other person around me. I get on social media, and this person had posted and said, I can't believe all the people out there walking outside without masks, and they're going to die and all the things. And I was like, oh, that's so, why didn't you just say, oh, like, oh, that was the worst.
yeah,
All the people, Lori. All the
All the
people.
people,
yeah,
read Corey Young out there all by herself. Oh,
yeah. It was, and I found, to kind of go back to what you're saying about it not being your friend. I've also found too people being like, "This is the time to build the business you've
Oh,
always dreamed of. If you wanted to write a best-selling novel, now's the time. Start a business. Look at my 4 Rolls Royces. You can." I'm like, it was some of that where it's like, "What are you
yeah.
sitting around things? Sorry for else, you lazy jerk. Like, you should be." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, easy." Like, I lost my job, and I had a horrible loss in my family, and which had nothing to do with COVID. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to start a Fortune 500 company in the next 6 months because I just feel sad. You know what I mean? Like, it's like sadness is the way to. So there was for me, there was some of that where it wasn't, the whole division was super stressful, but also why. And so my therapist was nice enough to share, like, yeah, every one of my clients is going through like the same thing. It's not like, And we didn't sit around. I mean, I worked out, we kept busy, but you know what I mean? I started feeling really beating myself up. Like, well, why aren't I like, reinventing the web or something?
I'm
Instead of just
writing 10,000 words a day. I could be, I'm not doing anything else, but no.
Stephen King wrote 3 novels during that year, but that's, he also writes 3 novels in the best of days.
Did he though? Or are you just using that?
I don't know. I'm joking. I'm just saying he writes a lot. My point is that there was some of the shame of like,
it feels like everyone else is doing the thing that you should be doing, but
yeah,
it's traumatic. What we went through was traumatic, and I think there's a whole lot of permission to just experience the trauma and be okay with what you get done, what you don't get done. But it's easy for me to say that now. Hindsight, of course, is 2020, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's the experience right now that we lean on going forward. As we talk about being, like you said, like your banner of authenticity over approval, like now we have a measuring stick. I'm sure there's 1,000 ways that experience can translate into testimony and instruction and equipment for the next time. Because I'm not saying there's going to be another pandemic.
There may be. I mean,
something else is bound to happen.
Something.
Well, because things happen, right? Like, welcome to human being life, right? This is like, things happen. We're always going to have the next thing around the corner. It doesn't have to be like pandemic style for us to be affected by it deeply. But that's just how life is.
And talking about that, life in general, the enneagram has been, Jim is not as familiar as, can you give
I was going to say, could you explain what that is? Is that some people, I'm just getting familiar with it. I think a lot of people don't know what the enneagram is.
Yeah, it's a tricky word, right? Because it's not very familiar, but enneagram is 2 Greek words. It's a compound word. Ennea means 9, and gram is like a drawing or a diagram. Basically, they're 9 unique ways to see the world or viewpoints. They're motivation based, not behavior based. And so it gets tricky because in order to do a self-assessment, you have you need to be able to assess your observable behavior. But there are several different types on the Enneagram that could have the same behavior, but for very, very different reasons. So that's what kind of makes it unique, is it's the why behind what you do, why you do it, why you react a certain way under stress, why you react a certain way in a growth. And so the whole point of the Enneagram is for growth and for self-discovery, and to embrace and acknowledge your strengths, and also understand the areas that you might be weak in, or areas that you want to grow or strengthen or get better. The thing that I love about it, that I kind of bring authenticity over approval to the Enneagram, is holding all of your innards, all of your stuff in a really non-judgmental place. Being able to say, yep, that is an area of my life that I struggle in. However, when I use it wisely, it is an area of strength for me. I can see how when I overuse that strength, it becomes my greatest weakness. And so how do I become more aware? How do I become more open? And how can I use all of this information to love my people well? That is, like, to me, the superpower of the Enneagram, is holding myself without judgment and holding other people and their reactions without judgment.
Great. And
That's
how does
amazing.
do you do, I know you speak, which we talked at the beginning. Do you also do one-on-one? Do you do groups? Like, I'd love to hear more about how you use the Enneagram in your, I'm mispronouncing it, in your work.
Yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching. I do faith-based coaching, which is kind of a more set 6-session program. I also offer unlimited coaching. So for like a 6 or 12-month unlimited program, we talk about your goals. We talk about what you're, where you're trying to get to. That can be professional or personal goals. And how your enneagram type can help maximize some of those goal opportunities. I also do workshops with leadership teams or sales teams, and we talk about how to work more effectively with each other. We talk about teamwork, decision making, strategy development. Like I just have a whole list of things that teams can pick and choose what they want to work on. If they're doing like okay, we're setting up our strategy for 2022, then I would come in and do like a whole day retreat for them to help them get organized and get moving in the right track so they can get their business like to the next level.
Wow.
Right. And I know that the speaking started off rough, the end of the world almost. So, but where are you at with that now? Like, how did that, like, when did that come back, and has to come back, and how did that evolve? Hopefully, I assume it's evolved since that time.
It really has. I have probably 1 or 2 group workshops a month that I get to do, like either an intro to the Enneagram or some kind of team building exercise with groups. And it probably started about 6 months ago, when we were able to start meeting in person again. However, I was getting a lot of more informal speaking things on Zoom before that. So once I kind of got certified, I think people have told me I didn't need to do that. I already knew what I needed to know, but it boosted my own inner sense of, yes, now you're equipped, and that just gave me confidence, and I was able to just go out and say, yeah, this is what I do. Now I have some expertise in this area. Yeah. And it's just networking, right? It's just getting in front of people and talking to people, and this is what I do. And slowly, it's been increasing and growing over the last year.
What you have so much going on. What is the hardest part about it now? Post, not mid, I guess we're mid-pandemic. I don't know where we are. We don't know yet. Yeah.
This could be the beginning. I don't know.
Just be started.
We'll
what is the hardest part of it now? I guess almost a year and a half later after that initial start. And I know I'm watching I know we're keeping you a little longer. Sorry.
Oh, I'm fine. I have plenty of time. Okay. I think the hardest part is, so I'm an Enneagram type 3, and I didn't realize this about myself until one of my certification classes. We did a visualization exercise, and the exercise was visualize 6 months from now, you're celebrating something. What are you, like, be really clear about that vision. What are you celebrating? Who are you celebrating with? What does the celebration look like? And I couldn't decide. I had like 2 different visions in my head, specifically what I was celebrating. Oh, am I celebrating like this big speaking gig, or am I celebrating the number like that I've earned? Am I celebrating this? Like, I kept having this debate in my head. And so this is what I told the trainer, who's amazing, who's been doing this for over 30 years. And she said, oh, that's like classic 3. So you can't decide which event or goal you're celebrating, so you don't do any of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly right. So the biggest challenge for me is picking the one thing and going after it in the next 6 months, because
you don't want to miss
they all sound awesome. Yeah, I want to do it all.
Right.
Wow, that's
It
really
gives me
interesting.
anxiety to just pick a thing, and just go after the one thing.
We're in a
But
group- we're in
you
a we're in another group that they call it a misogi, and it's like a one thing a year. It's like you're climbing your peak, right? Whatever. Now,
Just one thing a year that's going to change the rest of you. You'll remember it's like, could be a marathon, ultra marathon, get out of debt, but something significant that's going to really define your year.
yeah.
And it's usually very hard, and usually is, something that's going to, it's not just, it's something significant.
Yeah, but the reality is, the point being, he calls it, you're climbing a peak. Sorry, but as soon as you climb the peak, you're gonna look, and there's another peak, and there's another peak, and so the other things are out there for you, Lori.
I really appreciate that encouragement.
You can pick one first, and then you can. Right. I know, because I have similar tendencies, like where I want to do so much and then I don't do anything because I feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start. So, it's like we've started the vodcast because I don't know how to do a podcast, but I'm just like, okay, we'll do it on Zoom. Like, we're just going to do this, and then I'll do the next thing, and then I'm trying.
Right.
Yeah.
You just got to get the plane in the air.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I just want to circle back real quick to something you said earlier about, now, a lot of people, as you probably know, like about 4 million people have left their jobs to do other things. The pandemic changed people, the way they look at work. They were like, I really didn't like my job. I don't want to do this anymore, whatever. I have personal friends that have made leaps into different careers later, frankly, in life, and they're doing something different. They just looked at everything. Now you made a change before the pandemic. However, did the pandemic strengthen your resolve to change? Did it change the way even more than you had looked at your former job or former career before all this?
Yeah, I didn't for a while, but then when the opportunity to get certified, to go through that program, I realized how much that was opening up the door for me to be able to coach anyone across the United States. It opened up the opportunity to do workshops anywhere I want, which meant that I could continue to market myself and brand myself to everyone in my network, not just the people locally. Right. So that part was incredibly life-changing for me. Wow. Because I can do this with you, and it is well worth my time, even though we don't live in the same state. Right. But I have people from all over who are finding my Facebook page, who are watching my Facebook Lives, we can meet over Zoom now. It's a normal thing, where it wasn't before. And so it's been just a super expansive, abundant kind of experience for me.
Right.
That's amazing. I'm going to go off my script. I know I sent you a few sample questions. I'm going to go off because I have a question that just came to me. Lori Young, if you could talk to that Lori Young on March 13th, 2020, who's curled up on the couch, 2020, right? We don't even know what year.
No, March
13th was the shutdown day.
The day after the
day after. Yep. You're sent home. You're like in a tizzy. Do you have any sense of what you might say to her on the spot?
Oh, for sure. Just hang in there. Everything is going to be okay. Take this time, rest, walk, breathe, take in information, listen to the podcast, just do what you need to do, but and it's going to take longer than you think, but you're still going to be okay. You are going to come out on the other end, and everything is going to be okay. And you still have value. You will have more value than you ever thought you could. You still have so much to bring to this world. It's okay to shut yourself down while the world is shutting down. It's going to be okay.
Great.
That's so good.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
COVID or no COVID.
That's why I want to.
Yeah. I mean,
it's hard. I think we forget sometimes to go back and think about how we might reframe our thought process after the fact. Like, we're so happy to be out of it and to survive and to be moving on, that I think retrospect sometimes, obviously not wallowing, but retrospect can be really important. So
Yeah.
there were so many things I didn't get to ask you. I'm sure we'll get a chance to revisit. I don't want to keep you. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to answer? That no, okay.
So you two, first of all, you are such good interviewers.
Oh,
You are
wow.
such a solid team. And yeah, I was really encouraged today. So I have, yes, this was an amazing experice.
Oh, great. Great. Well, that's wonderful. I do have one techie, one of my standard questions. What time of day are you most productive? I like to ask people this because it's not always, I know we call it rise and write, but it's not always about the morning.
No, I am definitely a morning person. I don't know how this rhythm started for me, but early morning, I am done with my day by noon, which is such a shame because there's so much more to do. I've had to develop more energy after afternoon and figure out how to keep it going until 4 or 5. But early morning is my best.
How early?
You know, it used to be before I turned 50. It used to be like 5 a.m. Every morning I would get up at either 4 or 5. I would have quiet time, journal, work, you know, then I could like jump into work. But now, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 7. It just depends on how well I sleep the night before.
Yeah, we're East Coasters, and I find if you're on Mountain or Pacific time, you have to curve it early because the world is up. 50% of our population in this country is on Eastern time. The world is up like 3 hours before you, and you just feel so behind. Yeah.
Now, where can people,
I know
you have a lot of stuff going on. Where can people find you?
Yeah. So the best places to find me on Facebook are like facebook.com/authenticity over approval, or at Lori Young Coaching on Facebook. And if there are blog readers, you can find me at authenticityoverapproval.com.
Well, great. I will be linking I do a weekly recap after the interviews that I post. I'll be linking all those for you. Absolutely. All right, Lori, thank you so much for your time. I know you've had a busy morning. I will see you, I'm sure, online later to iron some other stuff out. But thank you so much for your time. It was really wonderful talking to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you both so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
This is our... All right. That was Lori Young out of Colorado.
That was terrific. Yeah.
Immediate thoughts. Yeah. Any?
Well, yeah, I think that she used, it was interesting. Well, first, you know, how give yourself a little bit of a break during a unprecedented pandemic that hasn't happened in a century, and also how it actually turned positive because she was able to get certified, which sounds like it would have been very expensive and travel and all that stuff. She was able to do it online, and that to me, and I think that's changed, you know, for us, even like meetings that we have, we can do Zoom, where maybe, you know, we would have had to come in and travel, we do Zoom, and you know, you can reach anyone in the country or the world, frankly. And how that was a positive. But I appreciated her honesty. I think a lot of us, if we're honest,
talk about authentic.
If we're honest, it was a very tough time, you know, and that's if everything went quote smoothly and you didn't have any maybe more challenges and stuff. So I think that just giving yourself a little bit of grace for 2020 is probably a good idea.
Yeah,
But this year it's over. I mean, we're done with
no more grace in 2021.
Around. We gotta we gotta start that. You know, and also like real quick, like her leaving. I know she left her job before the pandemic, but you know, a lot of people are leaving their jobs or they're just rethinking their lives. What do I really want to do? And millions of people have left their jobs to do something else and not just sitting around watching Netflix. They're doing something else. And I think that that's, in a way, maybe, you know, there'll be some good that came out of a very bad situation.
Yeah.
God, that's profound.
Very nice. Yeah,
Ooh.
clunky growth year, clunky
Yes,
growth
I would
year.
agree. It's not like I went to the gym and I lost 20
Yeah.
pounds. It's like, no, it's very,
Yeah.
it's not quite
So
as
if
smooth.
anybody listening to this, you know, feels like they didn't pandemic right, they didn't make enough sourdough bread,
You
they
screwed it up.
didn't start they didn't start
more.
their baking business or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not just you. Like
Time's over.
we all had to figure out what it meant for us. And I think the effects, it's going to go on. We're going to.
And it changed. I mean, it changed every week. It's changing now. It's
still
like
changing.
doing this, don't do that. You know, you're allowed to, like, you know,
and
don't go within 30 feet. And then it's like, no, you can kiss strangers.
Yeah.
I don't kiss strangers. I'm just saying, like, if I could, I would.
This is as close as we get.
Anyway, no, it wasn't like, you know, anyway.
Yeah. So I just, word of encouragement to everybody. Like, it took me till just like a few weeks ago to even get this started. I didn't have the bandwidth in 2020 to start this. It took me a while to come around to things. It takes time. Please be kind to yourself. And by being kind to yourself, you learn to be kind to others. And it's, those are good things.
All right.
I have one follow-up also. Just one thing that struck me was the Enneagram. And I know we've talked a lot about this. I don't have any investment in it myself, but the fact that Lori knew herself enough to give herself the space to say, this is normal for me. This is a normal reaction for me in stress, to beat myself up, to isolate, to whatever. That is really one of the really powerful things about the Enneagram is just recognizing that your reaction is normal for you, and then what to do about it. Like, you don't let it steamroll you. Like, you're aware of it and you can make changes accordingly. It's a really, really powerful tool. So I'll put Lori's links because I know she has a lot of free resources also. Just look for the links in the show notes, and that's it. Yeah, until next time, set your alarms for whatever time you feel most creative and productive.
I didn't set my alarm today. I forgot.
Okay. And then
so stupid.
Go rise and write. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.